Hello and welcome to Practice Grappers episode 49. On this here episode, we headed down to South Yorkshire to take in True Grit Wrestling and down in that city of Leeds for Showtime Slam at the Left Bank venue just on the outskirts of the city centre. Well, my camera decides to freeze. There we go. So, yes, heading to True Grit for my first show, which, as my notes tell me, was my 38th show of the year and show 172 with my 164th UK show of all time. So I am catching up with Jeebus. Still nowhere close to where he is at the moment. But it was great to catch up with Jeebus, and we had a very nice chat for the show. A couple other people I did see there were Lauren and Gav, which is always nice to see familiar faces when you travel to different shows. It's nice to know you're not the only one there. Jamie, I did see there as well. That said, while you meet a lot of people through your kind of like wrestling travels, you're not as talkative to as many as you would like to be. Kind of Jeebus I've known quite a while now, so I'm more kind of confident, if you like, chatting to people I know more. So there'll be times I chat to people at other wrestling shows, or I'll just say a friendly hello. Mainly not because I'm being nasty or ignorant. It's normally a case of I just might not know you too well. But I will always say, or I will try at least say hello. But again, before we even come to what happened this past Friday night in Leeds, how are we all doing? It's been a warm one in Manchester again. Obviously, not in terms of the heat that we had on the last podcast, but it's still bad enough. It is still warm as heck. I have the fan blowing at me right now just to cool me down. Probably doesn't help wearing a woolly hat constantly either, but hey ho. So unfortunately, I was unable to make the final TV tapings of Catch the Zeitgeist at Red Arch in town. This is because the other thing that I follow is Speedway, and unfortunately, Catch and the Speedway meetings do unfortunately clash now on Monday evenings. It isn't very conductive for me. Two things I have either loved or I like. However, I am planning, once all the Zeitgeist videos have been published, to do a mega long review of all four shows, and also include a preview ahead of Art New Riot on August the 1st at Gorilla, which I am particularly looking forward to. Uh, so you will have that coming in the next few weeks or so. But we will start with what I saw on Friday night in Leeds as we saw True Grit Wrestling's Showtime Slam at the left bank. So the opening contest saw Harley Harris taking on Venus. However, before we even come to that, I do have to mention the left bank because it is now in one of my favorite wrestling venues I have ever been to. Um, I think it was a church that obviously it was a church because it had stained glass windows. Uh, it would be good though if they could put wrestling faces on the stained glass windows, but oh, there's a thought. Anyway, so headed to the left bank. Nice setup at the left bank. Um, when I've seen videos, it felt very big, the venue, and while it's still decent sized, it does not particularly look that big. It seems very uh, compact, shall we say, but it's still decent size. So it's not the smallest venue I've ever been to, but it did have a bonus of being stone and the warm weather we are experiencing in the UK does help if it is in stone because it makes it a bit more cooler than if it was brick. Um, so, and I did mention that on the Instagram saying I do like the setup at left bank. So you never know. I might even pop over again. But I can't hold off any longer. Let's get into the card. So, as I say, the opening contest featured Harley Harris against Venus. So, few things I've written. This was my first time seeing Venus on a card. Harley I've seen a few times at Salford and is always the powerhouse on every match I ever seem to see her on. Um, this was a bit of a strange match for me, as it felt more like they were trying to build Venus up, and we didn't see a whole lot from Harley. I thought in this contest, she started off well, and then in what I thought at least, just seemed to fade very quickly. Um, we had the match kind of go to the outside. Uh, had a couple. I think it was Venus dishing out the forearm shots to Harley, who was sat on the front row where there was a spare seat. Um, but the whole contest just felt very much like Venus controlling the action. Very kind of one way for the majority of this bout. Um, we did have Harley kind of fire up towards the back end of things. This kind of tied in slightly with Venus ripping the turnbuckle pad off, or initially tried to, and then just moved it to one side, which made a bit more sense, I thought. Harley then kind of fired up again, ended up with Venus whipping her face first into the corner, almost like a Brett corner bump. Um, though Harley's face seemed to go right into actually the exposed turnbuckle. And when I've seen that particular bit in matches happen before, it's always looked a bit off and doesn't really come across as it would do any damage. The way Harley went into the corner and took that exposed turnbuckle, dear God, you could probably have counted to 100 and she would not have got up. Uh, Obviously, that led to Venus picking up the 1, 2, and the 3. Uh, Impressive display from Venus, I have to say, above all things. Uh, Harley really made Venus look absolutely like a not a monster, but made her look very kind of dominating um, in this contest. So it will be interesting to see what happens with Venus and even Harley moving forwards. Well, I take a quick drink. Other drinks are available. Match number 2 was a 4-way match, which wasn't your typical 4-way match, as we had Evan Bishop, Jackie T, Pele, and Jason Joshua. Now, standard 4-way matches consist of 4 singles, all fighting each other. This was the weird scenario where it could have gone down a few different avenues. You could have had an unofficial tag match with Bishop and Jackie T against Pele and Joshua. You then had a weird looking 3-way where you would have had Bishop and Jackie T taking on separate opponents in Bishop and in Pele and Joshua. There was a lot of different ways you could have gone with this, but they went down the route of Bishop and Jackie working together, but not as a typical tag team. They were just on the same page and just work together to try and take Pele and Joshua out. So we start off. I will say my notes are quite hazy, so they could be in the wrong order, or I have possibly made things up. So be wary, because I have not watched the show back, and I'm using all my knowledge from up here, which is not the great thing to do because I do have the memory of a sieve. That said, we have the Bishop and Jackie T getting things underway by trying to take out Pele and Joshua. That very quickly does not work, as we have the unofficial coalition with Pele and Joshua working together themselves to take down the 2 rule breakers in this contest. But kind of as it goes on a bit, you can clearly see Bishop and Jackie T are working together, and it's opposite or different times in the contest look to try and just take one man out, and then once you've took one out, you're left with one other. But it didn't always go to plan. That said, this was a really fun contest. what you did see was Joshua, who is an absolute powerhouse. Um, I mean, when you see him on screen and photos, it doesn't do it justice to just how kind of like big he is and powerful. So you had the power of Joshua with the cunning of Pele, and Bishop and Jackie T just almost kind of being foils at times of what they're going or you know what they're trying to do. It doesn't always work out, but the irritants is a good way to put it. That all said, we do get down at one point as we have Joshua and Pele having going one on one. And then soon after, we see the return of Bishop and Jackie. Just, I think they take out. Okay, uh, they take out Joshua for a time. Then leaves Pele, and when the coffee connoisseur goes to hit a splash, he misses, and this then leads to Evan Bishop with a whip kick to the head of his foe, and has Jackie helping to increase the weight, um, and sees them picking up the victory over Pele. As I get messages trying to do things which I don't really want to do. We then 1 minute, you'll just bear with me. So we then come to match number 3, which was Act 2, Benjamin Harland and Jack Knudsen taking on Hollie Barlow and a mystery opponent. Oh, a mystery tag team partner. So this is due to Lana Austin uh, taking time out with concussion. So she's going to be out for a few weeks now, unfortunately. So get well soon, Lana, because we miss you on wrestling shows. I need someone to grab my hat and throw it to the back of the room. Uh, so anyway, who was going to be Hollie's tag team partner in this match? And we ended up with, I think, arguably one person I did not even think about, and that was the Queen of Queens, Visage. Visage, I have not seen since last year at New Wave West Midlands. Um, I'm trying to remember who they faced now, um, but it was a really good contest. Um, but in fairness, this was a whole lot of fun. This match, it was a mix of slapstick with serious wrestling and really good tag team wrestling from either team. So we start off with Hollie Barlow, the, as I like to say, the Scrappy Doo of British wrestling. Entertaining as fuck, but also um, is one of those people who at times does not realize how small she is, but has the biggest heart and will happily take on someone that is 7 foot tall. Um, and I think it's why everyone loves Hollie. Uh, it's it's kind of like the competitive nature, and it's just, I mean, Hollie's just a lot of fun on shows, full stop. Anyway, um, But this match was interesting. So you had the two tall people in the match, which was Harlan and Visage, roughly the same height, give or take a couple of inches. And then you had Hollie and Knudsen, who equally could be on the same height. Um, Maybe Jack might have an inch or two taller. Um, but this it played in very well because you had the two talls against the two small ones. Um, so we have Hollie trying to get the better of Haaland. Uh, Comes off second best every single time, trying to run into him. Eventually, she manages to knock Haaland on his ass, which got a massive cheer from the crowd. Um, and also, you have Act Two, who I've seen them both as fan favorites and rule breakers. When they are fan favorites, I almost feel like they lose a part of themselves. Um, Not to say that they're bad as kind of fan favorites, but I think with their dynamic and how entertaining they are as a tag team, I think they come off far better working the kind of like the villainous style personally. Um, and in this match, they kind of run that razor's edge of being goofy, but also still being able to be hated amongst the crowd, which is not always easy to do. Um, so it sees Act Two isolating Hollie from Visage as Harland and Knudsen show really great tag team work, winding their opponent up in the corner, which was Visage, who desperately wanted the tag to come in but was unable to. So that kept the momentum up on their team. Visage finally gets the tag, and the Queen of Queens uses one of the best methods in wrestling. Uh, and I have not seen it anywhere other than obviously Visage. And it's when the opponent is running at them, they whip their wig off and throw it under the feet of their opponent, very much like it is a banana skin. And it works to perfection. Um, the way Act Two took this, I loved so much. Um, but yeah, for most of this contest, it was Act Two with the upper hand. Um, but considering Visage and Hollie, I don't think have worked as a tag team in the past. The chemistry them two had was like they had worked together before, and it was so. This match as a whole on both sides. Act Two, you know what you're getting. Hollie and Visage as this tag team, I would happily pay money to see again because it was entertaining and the way they kind of like worked together um, towards the back end of this. So Act Two do a few tag team moves. They hit Day Tripper, but every single time they think they've got it, that slippery little, I was going to say deviant, that's not the word I'm thinking of. Uh, Eel, because I can't think of anything that's slippery. Um, in Hollie Barlow, I'm sure she'll love me for saying that. Uh, slips into the ring, breaks up every single time they go for a pinfall. In the end, we see a tag team combo with Visage grounding Knudsen and Hollie hitting an elbow from the top rope to wrap up victory. And then we get them dancing in the ring together. And you could genuinely see they were having far too much fun, as I think everyone in the left bank was during this contest. And in fairness, that was a good time to go for the intermission, which is what we went into. Um, we then came back for the second half, which felt very much a case of two halves for me. So the second half, or the first half of the second half, saw Gung Ho Muttley and the caddy going up against Sassy Bear Clarence in a 2-on-1 handicap rainbow bear hug match where the winner was whoever could make their opponents submit through a bear hug. Yes, you heard that right. Um, so I'll say this now. This and the next match we will talk about in a bit was bollocks. But it was fun wrestling bollocks. So we have Gung Ho Muttley sitting atop the top rope, reading Little Women to himself, while he lets the caddy take up the fight for him. The caddy looked absolutely scared shitless, to be fair. And Sassy Bear just has this look as if to say, what we doing? What's going on? I don't know what we're doing. You can try. You're not going to move me. And credit to Caddy, they do everything they can. It does not work. They try multiple of things, running the ropes, doing everything possible. Cannot knock Sassy Bear off. We then have a lacrosse stick brought into the contest. However, that is after we have Muttley screaming at the top of his lungs because he has read something in Little Women that distresses him. So we then finally get a 2-on-1. The lacrosse stick is used by Gung Ho on Sassy Bear Clarence. Sassy Bear is lay on the mat on his back. Gung Ho starts to do a scoop slam with Caddy. Every time they try to kind of like just throw Caddy on top of Sassy Bear Clarence, Sassy moves out the way and Caddy's just getting destroyed, or his back's getting destroyed, hitting the mat. This must happen about 3 or 4 times. Muttley just shouts at the caddy, just saying, "What are you doing? Why aren't you hitting him?" Badmouse caddy, to which the entire crowd are all caddy fans. They chant his name. They do not like Muttley. It's a fun little kind of, despite them being the rule breakers, it's in a very weird way, it's the Lex Luger Sting dynamic of having someone popular and someone hated on the same team. It's a weird way, but I'm choosing to go that way. Anywho, we see Sassy Bear going for a moonsault and misses. Is a really nice attempt, has to be said. Uh, it's that is one thing about moonsaults. The nicer the moonsault, the more people miss with them. It's rare to see a nice, crisp moonsault that hits looking perfect. There probably is someone that does it very well, but I cannot particularly think at this junction who. But I digress. We then have Caddy and Motley pinning Sassy Bear Clarence. And then Caddy goes to count 1, 2, 3. Sandy Beach the entire time is kind of just going out of her mind, explaining, saying it's not a pinfall match. It's a bear hug match. Informs them both. They choose not to listen. Sassy Bear Clarence then wakes up, staggers behind them, puts them both in a collective bear hug, and we very quickly see them both kind of passing out. And Sassy Bear Clarence wins this contest and keeps the losing streak of Motley continuing on. They did bring out a chalkboard that said how many wins and losses. There was obviously none in the win column. I didn't see how many losses, but it looked a fair few. But yeah, I really enjoyed that match. I thought that was a whole lot of fun. Talking of fun, while I go for another drink. We are joined at ringside by guest ring announcer Ding Frisbee. That is from Camp Wrestling, which is a gay and queer wrestling promotion in Leeds. Very kind of like cabaret and LGBTQ plus. It's I've seen clips of it and it does look quite fun. So this was I've put in my notes. It reminds me of the old. You'll have to go with me on this. The old kind of like 97, 98 WWF days when they used to have the trio matches for the world's smallest wrestlers. So you had like the likes of El Torito and everyone's favorite at that time in Max Mini. So that's kind of how I thought this was in a sense. Obviously not though, but it just gave that weird vibe. So we had a Camp Wrestling trios match with Max Gaines, Sierra Bellum, and Rich T taking on the team of the Underbaker. You heard that right. Fish Frenzy and Robin Rat. Now, out of all of them, I'd seen Rich T and Robin Rat at Tidal. And if truth be told, and you listen back to that show, Rich T impressed me a lot on that particular day. Robin Rat, for me, didn't seem to do a whole lot. And again, you can have off days, but it just didn't feel like they. I don't think they did themselves justice that day. I think is the better way to put it. However, This match, despite the tongue-in-cheekness of it and the downright campiness of it, my God, this was fun. Uh, and one thing you do need, I feel, with things like this, you need the crowd to, you need the crowd either to know who these people are, which is a bonus, but if they can go along with the ride as well, it helps everything. It helps how the match goes. It helps those in the ring. It just helps everything. And everything involved with this match went fantastic. Um, Everyone knew their roles in the crowd. Those in the ring knew what they were doing. It was campness personified, is one way to put it. Um, so I haven't got too many notes on this match because there was a hell of a lot that went on. And I can guarantee there will be a few people that this would not have been for them, or maybe they prefer more serious wrestling. Uh, that said, we had Rich T on Brett's rope. Now, this can be taken the wrong way. You need context. So, Rich T, their kind of gimmick, so to speak, is them trying to be the most straightest man there is, and is not particularly does not like anything that is not straight. Um, so always kind of like their thing is they will use like Lynx Africa or Lynx spray because other deodorants are available and different types of spray. So Rich T kind of plays on that, claims he is the most, or claims they are the most straightest, but will then do certain moves that do not give off that of someone being straight. Uh, so we have Rich T giving, as opposed to like punches in the corner, give gives groin thrusts uh, to the head of their opponent on Brett's rope, and it's it's funny seeing people's reactions because it should be one of those moves where it it can be frowned upon, but I think in the right context it works superbly. And I think when Rich T does it, it works superbly with the gimmick. We also have a chant of "that is gay," which they claim very quickly it isn't, and Rich T stops it immediately. Uh, we also had I want to say it was a chant for Fish Frenzy, but I can't fully remember. Um, but the crowd was well and truly into this contest. And if anything, it may have produced one of the loudest chants in across the whole of the show. Um, which I think, as I say, helps a lot. So there was a lot of humor in this. Um, a couple of things may have kind of gone over my head, but we saw Fish Frenzy hitting a fisherman suplex. Fish Frenzy then produced a fishing rod from nowhere with Lynx Africa dangled from it as Rich T was desperately trying to kind of like grab the tin and spray him. Ends up grabbing the spray, sprays the groin, and then proceeded to do the groin thrusts. Then he gave it to Max Gain, who used it. And I think, oh no, sorry, I tell a lie. You had Rich C spray their groin. I mean, this is completely out of context if you know nothing about what happened. So I think it's one of the opponents is late in the corner on the bottom rope, and we get kind of like a Bronco Buster. But we've had Rich T and Max Gaines spraying their groinal area and proceeding to then do like the Bronco Buster, so to speak. It seems so wrong, but it's funny. Again, you need context. Um, we then have Robin Rat getting in the ring, picks up both opponents, or she picks up one opponent, then sticks a second opponent, to which they almost feel like it's a sandwich because she's got one on their back and one on the front. And I think they do a Samoan drop and then the other is a fall away slam at the same time, which is impressive as hell. And then to bring this match to a close, Robin Rat picks up Rich T, and I've said hits like a snowplow maneuver. I didn't fully see the maneuver because the person in front moved at the last minute, but it did look like a snowplow. If not, it was like a Death Valley driver. But that helped them win for their team. Again, campy, campy, but so much fun. I may be tempted to go to a camp wrestling show just because it's it's just weird and quirky. And I do know a couple others that wrestle on the shows. So that might possibly sway me to go to one eventually. But yeah, that was your kind of first half of the second half, if you catch my drift. The final two matches on the card were more of your serious wrestling. Swig for the working person. As your penultimate match of the night was Sammy Blue taking on Che Monet, a repeat of their match from the same show last year, where I believe Che Monet won. So this was kind of, in a sense, Shawn Michaels and Undertaker, or Triple H and Undertaker coming back fine following year to finish off their kind of back-to-back years. I haven't described that well at all, but you kind of know where I'm going with this. Anywho, the crowd at the left bank are solidly behind Sammy Blue in this contest. That said, they're not against Che Monet. They are just cheering more so for Sammy. That said, me and a couple were cheering for Che. So we have Monet doing their best to try and get the crowd going, doing the claps to get them involved. In hindsight, when it's two kind of like fan favorites, you normally get them both doing it. So if one does it next time, it will be the other person. And looking back now, I think it was Monet that did it every time, which would, in a sense, play out as we come to the end of the match. So, this was obviously a lot, kind of like fast paced and more in keeping with like serious wrestling. And it was a really good contest. In fairness, uh, the match went to the outside, went back inside. Uh, Both have near fall attempts, to which seemed like whatever they threw at their opponent, um, they just kept kicking out. Neither person could keep their opponent down for the free count. Blue does everything, can't win. Che Monet hits a tombstone, and that doesn't even keep the shoulders down of Sammy. At this point, we see Sammy Blue roll to the outside and crawl under the ring. Monet then, after a bit of time passes, goes to grab him, goes under the ring and pulls the leg. And once they throw them back in, you can clearly tell this is not Sammy Blue because they have grown a foot. So the referee, Scott Bell, and Che Monet both realise it isn't Sammy Blue, it's Sammy 2. And they all tell Sammy 2 to leave. Scott Bell gives it the kind of almost the Saturday Night Fever of roll the arms, or if you want to go really old school, wind the bobbin up and eject Sammy 2 from the match. This then has security and all the referees helping to drag Sammy 2 into the backstage area. This then leaves Che Monet in the ring all alone until Sammy Blue reappears with a steel chair and smacks Monet in the back, goes for the cover, shouts for a referee to come down and count pinfall. The referee comes in. 1, 2, 3. Sammy Blue is your winner. And the locals in the left bank are not happy at all. We then have Sammy Blue asking for the microphone. So he then accuses the fans of always trying to make it about themselves when it doesn't include them. Goes on to say this is a big moment in professional wrestling because this is going to be like a new Sammy Blue. We then, I'm not sure on this bit. So just before we go for a second interval, we have this gentleman of a vintage age come down to ringside and try to grab Sammy Blue's arm. Now, I don't know if I've heard people say this is family related. And Sammy does not look flustered by this. I just found it a bit weird. So someone said it's the granddad. I just carried on watching, thinking, is no one going to stop this? So I take it people know who this guy is. No one was particularly panicking. So yeah, it was a weird aftermath, I thought. Anywho, we then have a 15-minute break as we're told to leave the premises as they construct the steel cage for our big main event, which was for the Tidal Pride Championship, which would take place in the confines of a solid steel cage. as Adam Bolt put up his Pride title on the line against the leading man, Tony Wright. Now, I've said this on socials. I have not seen any of their previous matches at True Grit. For some reason, I put Tidal. Ignore that. It's True Grit Pride Championship. Um, what we so I haven't seen any of their previous matches in True Grit. However, I have heard a hell of a lot about the rivalry, and what they did do a great job at was before the two came down to ringside, they kind of played out the history between the two. And for people like me that have not seen things play out, we kind of got updated. And so you knew kind of like what had happened in the past between these two. Um, but I but I think in truth, if you was there this night, then you knew full well kind of like the backstory and where things had gone. Um, but this, well, I'll come to my thoughts at the end. So this was a match where pinfall, submission, and escaping the cage, be it over the top and to the outside, or through the door and both feet touching, would be or would signal victory for whoever. As the match starts, Adam plays very much to his name as he bolts for the door, but he's thwarted by Tony Wright. Adam continues to try and find different ways to escape the cage, like kicking Tony in the gut, whipping him into the turnbuckle, and then making a beeline for the cage. Wasn't quite like the SmackDown games where you run to the cage and then it's like sloth style going up. They did use a bit of speed to try and get up the cage at times. That said, what they did do was they used the cage appropriately. And what I mean by that is you can have cage matches or any type of matches where there is a stipulation and you do not use the surroundings in your match. So we had both men at different points in time throwing their opponent into the cage. So we had Adam sending Tony into it a fair few times and helped play to the crowd while doing it. As in truth, Bolt dominated the first half of this contest. Tony would fight back and then throw Bolt into the cage about 3 times or so. And I wondered if they were going to do like a blood spot. Obviously, they didn't. But I thought they may have done due to the fact that Adam really seemed to take one of the throws into the cage to the face. So we then have a bit later on, Adam drop kicks Tony into the cage, and the momentum of Tony has him knocking into the cage door, which then takes out referee Lee Thomas, as he was doing the honors of the cage door, opening and shutting. Due to Thomas being knocked out, we had Sandy Beach and Scott Bell uh, checking on him and taking him up the ramp or the stairs and into the back. However, at this point, it saw Tony climbing. Um, oh, did it? Oh no, it might. I could be wrong on this. I think it was Scott Bell got took out by Bolt. I think Sandy Beach helped Thomas to the back. Meanwhile, in the ring, uh, Scott Bell gets knocked out by Bolt accidentally. Tony then scales the cage like Spider-Man, touches the ground, celebrates, big massive cheer from the crowd, but there is no referee present to award the victory. This then sees Jackie T and Evan Bishop returning to ringside as they attack Tony Wright, throw him back into the ring, and at the same time introduce a table into the contest and set it up in the corner. So as time goes on, this table is not used, and we see a 3-on-1 beatdown of Tony with Jackie T, Evan Bishop, and Bolt. However, we then have some cavalry come in the shape of Pele and Jason Joshua. They try to get into the ring, but Bishop and Jackie refuse to let that happen. Meanwhile, on the other side of the ring, Bolt has already started the descent up towards the top of the cage. Pele and Joshua run round the other side, letting Bolt know that if he falls, they will catch him and will not let him hit the ground. It's at this point Wright then fights off Bolt's cronies, and Adam looks behind to see what's going on, looks over to see Pele and Joshua, and Bolt climbs to the top of the cage and hits a jaw-dropping moonsault to take out Wright and Bishop and Jackie T. Arguably wasn't particularly helped with no one fully catching him. There were hands, but was not cleanly caught. It has to be said. So the match continues as Pele and Joshua get into the ring. They then remove Bishop and Jackie, and we go back to a one-on-one contest. At this point, we then have the co-GM in Ivy heading down to ringside with a pair of handcuffs. Her plan to handcuff Tony Wright goes awry as Tony manages to avoid getting handcuffed. Bolt takes a run at him as Tony dodges, and as Adam spins round, Tony Wright super kicks or goes to super kick Adam Bolt and catches Ivy flush in the face as Ivy is effectively taken out in this contest. And then we have Bolt getting the table, resetting it up. So takes it down from the corner, sets it up not mid-ring, but towards mid-ring. Both men then seem to kind of fight up at the top. Then they work their way back down again, standing both on the top rope. And as they're fighting, you can sense where this is going to go with the table almost kind of taunting him, saying, come through me. And both men go through the table. Uh, if anything, I think Tony took the worst end of this. Even though he did a very good job at making it look more painful than it was. Uh, so they both crash through it. Tony then is the first man to his feet, climbs up to the top of the cage. Adam follows suit, grabs him, tries everything to yank him down. Bolt is thrown backwards, so almost does like a moonsault, but is effectively down for the count. Tony, who all he has to do now is swing a leg over, climb down, and he has won this match. But he wants to put an exclamation point on this. And so he climbs back down to ringside. On the top rope, waits for Bolt to get up, hits him with a big claim to fame. And that, after 623 days, finally ends the title reign of Adam Bolt and sees the new era for the Pride Championship at True Grit Wrestling as Tony Wright is your brand new champion. And it has to be said, the crowd noise when he gets that free count. Wow. It is easily one of the loudest cheers I have heard a wrestling show anywhere. And to say that this meant a lot to a lot of people in that venue would be a understatement. I saw some people cry. I saw a lot of people overjoyed. Uh, to be honest, the way they put this match together and everything about it, I made the point as I was coming home, and even on the Saturday, that I have this as my match of the year, in person at least. My match of the year was Oberman and Jacobs. It has to be said that when looking between the two, there may have been a couple of things that slightly off in the. Just let me have a quick check with the Jacobs Oberman match. Very, very, very slight things that just may not have clicked. That said, this hit everything. The crowd were invested. They told a good story. Both men put in a hell of a performance. And all the bit part players involved in this were exceptional. And even though they were probably in this match for about, say, at most, if I'm pushing it, 90 seconds, the super kick on Ivy, if you see it, everything about that was fantastic. From Ivy trying to put the handcuffs on Tony and not able to do it, Bolt trying to hit Tony and then Tony dodging, Adam then ducking, and Tony catching Ivy with, I would say as well, the best super kick for a particular part in a match I've I've particularly ever seen. I've seen some super kicks used and they haven't hit, or it's been a bit predictable, maybe. But that whole segment, I think, helps that match even more so. That said, overall, that is my brand new match of the year with an asterisk because we are in July now and we still have a fair few months to go. Uh, However, that is the front runner so far. Um, so we will see come Christmas time if that one is still the match of the year. Um, Bon, Bon, gassy Lucasade. But show as a whole, really good show. Um, I think it would be fair to say it wasn't a true, I don't mean it, a true grit show. Um, I think it felt more like a bit of an offshoot show in a sense. So I would still be tempted to go back again and see a traditional, if you want to say that, um, True Grit show in Leeds. So I will see when the dates are for shows. Um, but yeah, it was enjoyable. Um, the the taxis, I think in total cost me about £12 from Leeds station there and back, which is a quite a good price for taxis. Mind you, it does help. I've got money off an Uber, which does help with travels as well. Um, and I got back at a good time. I managed to get home, a good 20 minutes before midnight, which um, which for me is not bad. Because normally, if I do shows outside of Manchester, I tend to get back home around midnight, or I just stay over for that evening. But I wanted to try and get home straight after the show. Show finished roughly about, I think it was like half, maybe 10, something. I could be completely wrong with that. I can't remember what time my train was, to be fair. I think I got on at 10:25. So I think it must have finished around quarter to, and then got the taxi and then had to wait about 5-10 minutes. Uh, Ended up playing uh, That Toilet's Locked with everyone that was passing. Everyone that seemed to pass was looking for the toilet that was right next door to me and kept informing everyone, I think it's broke. No one's been using it. Um, to which Sen should have told me not to sit near the toilet. But with me, I always tend to go near toilets. Not in a weird way, just I'm getting old, you see. So that's always helps being near one. But yes, that was True Grit Wrestling. A really good show from top to bottom. Some matches I felt hit more than others, but it was a fun one overall. Uh, Upcoming attractions. So, if I've bothered to actually put that little stinger in, but yes, as I said at the start of the show, I will be in Birmingham on Friday for a Kamikaze Pro 13th anniversary show. Uh, yes, my grandma would hate me for trying to do that impression, but there we go. She was from Edgbaston, after all. Sharing too much here. Uh, but yes, I am hoping to catch up with a friend who has never been to a British wrestling show uh, and is based out of Birmingham. So I thought I would treat him to taking in a show. So that will be fun. I might even ask his thoughts on the match or the show as a whole, depending what time it finishes. Anywho, that is Friday night. On Sunday night, or Sunday afternoon at least, is the lead up to the anniversary show next month for Future Shock, as we have the traditional show, End of the Line, a double header at the Stockport Guild Hall. Uh, Looking really forward to that show. A couple of matches uh, are standouts. Um, One match particularly is that, oh, there was two actually. Alejandro West v Brady Phillips, to which I think it's Brady Phillips' debut at Future Shock. So that will be entertaining enough. Uh, but the return of Violet Knight as she takes on Hollie Barlow for the Future Shock Women's Championship. Oh, the, I have thoughts on that, which I will may address at a later date. Because I might try something next Sunday, so we will see possibly if I pull it off or not. But yes, that is all for this episode. If you have any comments, please feel free to drop me a note on Brad's Grappers, that on X or Instagram. If you're in Birmingham next Friday or Stockport on Sunday, say hello. I will be there. Um, I might look haggard come Sunday. Uh, Also, on Saturday night, TNT, I believe, have Summer Explosion. Um, so that is going to be, oh, that's a double header as well at Hangar 34. Unfortunately, I cannot afford to do all these shows, unfortunately. Um, but if you can make it along, I know the G the group chat wrestling podcast group will be there because they are always there on the balcony. So shout out to you guys. Um, Shout out also to penciled in Nikki, my technically wrestling boss, as she cut a I say she cut she did an interview with Alton Thorne, and if you haven't seen it either, I sat in for their interview along with penciled in Mike, as they did a chat with the one and the only referee Steve Grimshaw. An absolute delight to have sat in for that. Steve is one of the good eggs in British wrestling circles. A man that I could listen to all day. Uh, Very interesting to listen to. So yes, give them a listen. Who else can I give a shout out to? Graps and Claps. They've just been to Rev Pro in Bradford. And also staying with that theme, rambling about wrestling. They also went to Bradford. Um, well, I think Jack did. The better half of the two in Sam didn't, because the budget does not pass for two to go, despite one of them being nearer. But I digress. Thank you again for listening. Before I go, I know I'm terrible at ending shows. I always have been. One thing to do: support your local indie shows. Support the stars of tomorrow. If you can, buy their merch. Attend shows because there are a lot of good shows up and down the UK. I don't think there's anything else. So, with all that said, thank you very much for listening. And until we meet again, goodbye.